Welcome to episode 407 of Control Talk Now, where we discuss all things HVAC and smart building controls, including sales and marketing. My name is Eric Stromquist, and this week we're going to take a look at communication, how it affects both sales and leadership. My guest this week, Dennis Floro. Dennis is the right guy to talk to us about this, about leadership and running a business. Before starting his consulting firm, Floro Business Strategies, he became the CEO of Wilson Mohr. If you're in the business, you know how successful Wilson Mohr is. So after starting in outside sales, Dennis took the company from $8 million a year to $100 million a year and grew the company from 13 employees to 240. So Dennis knows his stuff. Dennis will be along in a bit, but I want to talk a bit about the connection part. To be effective in sales, leadership, or even life, being able to connect is the first thing that has to happen. To influence people, they must first feel a connection. From that connection, trust can be built. And from trust, people will either let you lead them, or if you're in sales, they'll probably start buying from you. So how do you create a connection? Most people try to find common ground. Hey, you like the Boston Red Sox. I like the Boston Red Sox. You know John Donahue. I know John Donahue. You play golf. I play golf. So let's be friends. Or if you're an outside salesman, you just keep showing up until they give you a chance to prove yourself. But what if there was a better, quicker way? That in the communication process, the words we speak to each other only constitute 7% of the message. And it's the last 7%. So think about that for a minute. Your words give you a 7 out of 100 chance of connecting. Now, most of us has gotten good with the words, aka the 7% part. Give us a chance to talk long enough and we'll find a way to connect. But what if you could stack the other 93% in your favor? I mean, what is the other 93% anyway? Well, the other 93% is all nonverbal communication. So things like the tone of your voice, your posture, what you're doing with your eyes, your hands, everything else we don't pay attention to is having a huge influence on how effective we're being as communicators. So nonverbal communication, it's a science, meaning it's been studied by scientists. Unless you're a hypnotist, a linguistics professor, an image consultant, to a Fortune 100 CEO, an actor, a nefarious politician, or an interrogator for the FBI or CIA, or me, you probably have never heard of nonverbal communication, much less how to use it. So let me give you one simple tip you can use right now to start connecting with people much more effectively and much quicker. So here's the premise. People tend to think and process information at the speed they speak. This has nothing to do with intelligence, but it's more of a personal preference. So for example, you could be riding in the car with Albert Einstein for the first time. And let's say he likes to listen to slow classical music. Well, you like rock and roll. So you get in the car, you put your rock and roll music on, and you get an instant disconnection. And it's not that you can't overcome this initial faux pas, but if you were paying attention, you could have played classical music as soon as old Albert got in the car, he had an instant connection. So here's kind of how this works. Here's what you need to do. When you meet someone for the first time, notice the speed at which they speak and match their speed. It's as simple as that. If they talk fast, you talk fast. If they talk more slowly, you talk more slowly. So if you're Sarah Montaloni, you better be talking fast to her. If you're Scott Cross, you better slow it down. But for me, I tend to speak very quickly. When I first got started in sales, I was calling on engineers who typically are more deliberate at the rate in which they speak. So I lost credibility as soon as I opened my mouth. But once I learned to match my pace of speaking with theirs, my effectiveness connecting with these engineers went through the roof. And this works, so give it a try. Remember, you can't lead people until you connect with them. So if you want more nonverbal communication tips, let me know in comments. Okay, before we get to Dennis, a word from this week's sponsor, Cochran Supply and Engineering. Thanks to Cochran Supply for supporting the show. And if you'd like to be seen and heard by the global Control Trends community, click on the link below in the show notes and find out how you can be a sponsor of Control Talk now. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dennis Floro. All right, man, I am pumped up to have my guest this week. I've known this guy for years. We've been friends. We've been competitors. We've hated the same people, loved the same people, and now he's about to celebrate his 10-year anniversary with his own consulting business. Please welcome my friend and guest, Dennis Floro, with Floro Business Strategies. Dennis, man, thanks for taking some time to talk with us.
Well, it's great to be here.
Just walk us through your journey, man. So you told mom and dad I'm going to be a consultant, or was it an astronaut or a fireman? What was it, man? Tell us about you when you were young and how you wound up where you are now.
I'm one of the people I think's been very, very fortunate. I've been able to live my dream. I can't remember the day since I could start to remember where I didn't want to grow up, become a manager, and then at the future lead the company. This is what I always wanted to do.
Because you ran Wilson Mohr, so how did you get in with Wilson Mohr?
Yeah, with Wilson Mohr, I was with them for 26 years, and I'd had some experience in distribution, industrial distribution in the past. And typically it was the second tier lines. And every place I would go, I'd walk in and they'd say, Dennis, we like you, we'd like to buy to you, but could you go get some level 1 lines? And so I started looking for companies that had the ones in the industrial distribution. And I came across one in an ad in a newspaper, and this will date me. I found it. I went to the payphone across from the plant that I had just walked out of. I called Dick Wilson at Wilson Mohr, set up an appointment with him to see him 2 days later. 1 week later, I had the job with him and stayed with them for 26 years.
Okay, so first tip we want to give some of the people that are listening is, how do you go about getting a job? Tips for getting a job.
I think the key tip is a couple of them. Be yourself. We see a lot of things on what makes a great salesman and this, that, and the other, but what makes a great salesman is the individual and knowing who they are. Only tell the truth when you're with a customer. It takes a long time to get a customer, and then you can lose a customer in 5 seconds.
And a job.
Oh, yeah, and you're, especially with Dick Wilson.
Yeah.
But I think that once you've got that, you've got to learn your product. And you've got to know your customer, what your customer's needs are. And I think one of the best gifts a salesperson can have is the gift of listening. Asking questions and then listening some more. Because I think there's a tendency when we hear one thing, we want to give them the application solution immediately, and we don't even know what it is. So I would teach salespeople too and say, just sit back and let them talk. Ask a few questions. Most people will talk forever.
Absolutely. So started with Wilson Mohr. Now you got their A-level product lines. I'm assuming, like most good salespeople, some of your customers probably came with you. Most of them did, I'm guessing. They could use the new product. And so you went from working at Wilson to running Wilson. Talk about that.
Well, when I started with Wilson Mohr, I started out as a territory salesperson. And if you're people who are familiar with Texas, especially Houston, I had from the city of Houston to the Houston Ship Channel, out to Beaumont, Lake Charles, and down to Corpus Christi. Today, there's probably 8 people that handle that territory. It's grown so much. And within that, I had all the product and systems responsibility that Wilson Mohr offered to, present to the customers and in turn get purchase orders for it. And I did that for a few years with him, and then my relationship with Dick even grew more. We kind of knew the first time we met that there was bigger things that could happen. And the relationship began to grow more, and so then he moved me into a sales management position. I spent a few years there, and then I moved into the vice president position, which at that time I was really beginning to take over the entire company. Dick was phasing out. Ron Mohr was beginning to phase out. And I spent a few years as a vice president with getting great mentoring from Dick. And then I took over as president and CEO, and I spent my last 13 years there as president and CEO.
Well, I want to cycle back real quick for the always tell the truth. I know in our company, you get fired on the spot only for 2 things. Only for 2 things. One, if you ever ask a customer to do something that's not in their best interest. So if you're selling them something that they don't need, knowingly doing that, you're gone, right? Second thing is, you ever tell a lie, you're gone. We can work with the rest of it, just tell the truth. And that is, I think, just such a great piece of advice, Dennis, to just always tell the truth, and the rest will work out. So what was it like took the reins at Wilson Mohr? Because, I mean, obviously, I know when I took over at Stromquist, we had what I called sort of the sacred cows, the people that had built the business to where it was. And I say sacred cows in a very respectful way. It might not sound that way. I was always very cognizant of the fact that these were the people that, created the company that Eric now got to run. I suspect you had some sacred cows at Wilson Mohr too. How did you sort of incorporate that and sort of put your own stamp on the company and take it the way you wanted to take it?
I think the first thing there was always communication, and then back to honesty. We did have those who had been there a long time, and they are, if they're doing their jobs, they are to be respected. And we had a number of people who were like that. They were used to everything that Dick Wilson and Ron Mohr had done, and then here comes this young pup in, and he's going to take over the business, and they're going to assume all of a sudden I know everything and I'm going to force everything on everybody. And that certainly wasn't the case. I think you, in a leadership role, you step back and you look with the people, who the people are, what they do and what value they bring, and also then how do they like to be talked to.
Yeah.
You can walk into somebody and just slam your hand on the desk and they go, man, I'm ready to go. You can go do that to somebody else and they're ready to go out the door. So I think we brought people together that way. I think the other key was too, as we moved from the people who had been there a while, when I took over, we had, I'm thinking 13 or 14 employees. When I left, we had well over 100 employees.
Wow.
And so the first thing I would say about that to leaders and company leaders and what they're doing, this isn't a one-person show. We were very fortunate to put together a team of people who I would always refer, we had the dream team before the dream team was invented. And so we had the dream team. We had a management team and the company employees of the company who always sold into the vision. And if they didn't sell in right away, the proof would come that we knew what we were doing. But we always took their input.
Okay, so I want to get specific because I know we have a lot of business owners that listen to this podcast. I hear what you're saying. It's like you got to talk to people they want to be talked to. So, all right, let's just take, you got a guy that's a big producer, okay? You're trying to get the culture to move in a certain way and act a certain way. And this or girl is a big producer, but I'm doing it my way. Doesn't play well with others, but it's important for you culture-wise to get everybody on the same page. How would you have that conversation with that individual, and how would you win them over?
I think the first thing you do is you sit down with them and you review the company goals, and you review how the direction that we're going and what their piece in that is, and what that quality and value they bring to that piece. And that comes through a couple different ways. One, I always believe, is measure. You have to measure people from where they are to where they're going. So sitting down with that individual to try and get them to look at where we're going and get them to buy in rather than just think I'll go sell as much as I want and do whatever I want, and you'll live with it. I always try and work through that, and I think most managers work through that. And the idea is to try and bring them in through verbal and written communication with them on what we're doing and where we're trying to go, and we want them to be a part. The one thing I would say, though, is it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
And I think that, what do they always say? You're only as strong as your weakest link. One bad employee can take 49 with them.
Yeah.
And at some point, the vision of the company becomes the vision of the company. And that's okay. You part ways. And then that leader goes and finds somebody who buys into the vision, is qualified, buys into the vision, and then helps you take it forward.
Dennis, the name of your company, and I know you, there's not a wasted word in anything, is Floro Business Strategies. So talk to me about strategy, the importance of it, the components that go into it, and then how you help companies execute on it.
Yeah, I think that when I talk strategy, it comes into every part of the company that I look at. And it hasn't happened very often where somebody just says, Dennis, come in and help us fix this one thing. Most times it comes in, and if they want one thing, it turns into taking a look at the whole company on what to do. And basically the way my process works is, again, I listen to what people have to say. I really want to get to know the leaders and the owners of that company. And I want to find out from them what their short and long-term range plans are, because it's different from company to another. One leader may have his company and he's only had it 7 years and he doesn't even see yet where the end will come. Somebody may have their company for 25 years and they're starting to add it up and say, how much longer do I want to do this? How much money do I want to take out of this when I go? And when is that time range that I would like to make that? And all of those questions come through the process. One of the first things that I do is I give them in a conversation a form that basically says to them, in your business life and in your personal life, 2 separate sheets of what you must have in your business and what you must not have in your business, and then ask them to do the same in their personal life. And I've done this with couples before who have run a business, and they do it separately first, and it's absolutely amazing how many times they come back not matching.
Wow.
With what they are. But it's great clarity, because then it starts to tell you as you go through your plan, what are you really looking for? And then we just start moving down through the company. I always have them put together a case for change. Why are we doing this? Who's it going to affect? And what's the end result? And the leader has to write this thing out, because we're beginning to build the messaging for what they're going to take to the company to explain why they're going. And then we just do your deep dive into it. We start looking at financials first. Most people, when they're doing their financials, they're interested in today. They're not always looking to tomorrow. And I'm a firm believer that you look at your financials for today, planning for tomorrow, and make sure your financials are clean. I think it's the best interest of companies to look at profit and EBITDA. And I always thought that from what I'd heard years ago from a mentor of mine, he told me, he said, Dennis, the one who knows their numbers the best will win most of the time.
Wow. I'd never heard that before. That's brilliant.
And so what I try to drive the growth plan to is, the first thing, we look at the current financials and we highlight those things that are just waste. Not people, other stuff. And then we go through and we start looking at that, and we start building a P&L that looks like what they have right now. We get that cleaned up, and then we start to forecast the future based on what they want to have done. The whole time we're cleaning up the internals of the company. We're looking at every area. We're looking at marketing. We're looking at technology. We're looking at HR and every other part of the company to make sure we bring it all together at the same time, so that one day that owner, that leader, gets up in front of the company and does a presentation on where they're going, why they're going there, and why it's important for them to come along with them.
Wow.
But the process itself can take anywhere from 6 months to 18 months. It depends how much time the leader has and how big the company is, because these people all need to do this work while they're still doing their day jobs. But the ideal thing is, I like to see, this question may come up later, I'll throw it in right now. One of the great passions I've always had, Eric, is I've been very fortunate to work with, early in my career, a large company, but mostly small to middle-sized companies. And I have a strong passion and desire to work with the small and middle-sized companies, because they don't always get the best look, and in some cases don't get the same opportunities that a larger company will have. And my whole thing is, and I've consulted with larger companies too, and I love to consult, but they have a lot more access to things. I like to take the small to medium size and have them dig into their company, prove their value out, prove their direction out, increase their profitability, and that day that it comes for them to sell, they get top dollar and they lead the negotiation, not the buyer.
What are the top 3 to 4 mistakes you see smaller businesses making that maybe they don't even know that they're making?
I would think one of the big ones is a continuous deep dive into the monthly financials by category. I think that the business runs so much and they have so much to do by being that small business leader. The financials get done. We look at the bottom line. We say, well, that's enough for this month. and we move to the next month, and you miss out on things on what's your sales? What's your sales GP? How many quotes did you quote that you did not get? How long and how large are the back orders? How's AP and AR doing? They all sound like regular things, but in the high energy business day of the small business owner, that may be a once a month look. And I think what I try and do is with them is working with the leader and with their finance teams or person, and to build in the measurements and that they want every month, the trends they want to see every month, so that on a Monday morning a leader goes into the office, they know what's happened the week before, they know what their goal was for the week before in certain categories, and then at the end of the month they hit the button and all of the financials come out.
One of my teachers used to say that you can work on the business or in the business, but it's very difficult to do both at the same time. Do you see most of your leaders that you consult with are working too much in the business and not enough on the business?
Yes, I do. I think it's just inherent that it's a behavior you get into when you start out. I had a mentor years ago that told me, he said, Dennis, he says, I need you to take one lunch hour a week, close your office door, prop your feet up on the desk, look out the window, and dream about the business. And nice. I looked at that guy's name, and his name was Bill, and I said, well, why don't you come in here and do that for me while I'm out there doing all my work? But I did start doing that from time to time, and it really made a difference, because when you're in it every day, in the business every day, you just see today. Yeah. You don't see the opportunities and the other things going on in the business world that you could really come to and even enhance your company, and may bring some people who you can go work on the business and you don't have to be in it.
Dennis, I mean, you've also gotten a great perspective. You've been a consultant for Controls Group North America, which is, we're members of. It's a huge organization of the top distributors in the United States and Canada and Mexico, for that matter, I guess. What have you learned from that experience?
That is a very unique organization. I think when you're looking for, first of all, for niche businesses, most of them growing from the dirt of the earth, and starting on with the business owners growing the businesses up. So that right off the bat tells you, if you've brought it from dirt up and you're still there and you've worked everything, you're very proud of what you do, and it can be very difficult to change your mind. Yeah. And I can say that because I help Wilson Mohr grow from the dirt, and sometimes it's just hard to change your mind. Yeah. I've been fortunate not just to be a consultant to CG&A. I was a member, and I was a board member with them too, so I got to see a lot of the inner workings. And I think when you get past that thing as they're all owners, and you get into the networking of that, and the people sharing and what's going on in the industry, what I've walked away and I've learned from that is, even if they're not in your territory, even if you compete with them, there's something you can learn from everybody. And I think that's what CG&A brought and still brings today. I think when you get amongst your peers, drop all the guard down, we're all in business together, we're probably all running through most of the same ideas, and I always know there's a better idea out there. And that's what I've learned about working with 40-some different business owners. We're never going to agree on everything. But one thing we agree on is to listen to each other on how to better run your business.
I think having an opinion you hold on to for too long might be the kiss of death with everything that's coming. I think you're going to have to look at things with fresh eyes every single day and be willing to adapt.
I totally agree with that.
Well, Dennis, look, you've mentioned mentors a couple of times. Talk to me about the importance of finding a mentor and some of the best advice you got from some of your mentors.
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I probably would say I've had 5 or 6. What I would say have been top quality mentors. And, it depends what stage of life you're in. One of the best I ever had was my English teacher in high school. And we were having our senior class play, and he wanted me to play a role in it. And I said, no, I can't, and I won't do that. I can't get up in front of people. Opening night, I was playing the second lead in the play. And what that mentor taught me was, if you want to take the time and learn it and not be afraid, you can go accomplish great things.
Wow. Great advice.
And so I've got that from that one. I had a consultant here in the Houston area that I worked with, And he was retired from Shell Oil when I was with Wilson Mohr. And he's the one that came into me and really helped me take a look at the first plan they'd ever had, strategic plan. And he's the one that said, if you really want to help the company, close your door at lunch, 1 hour a week, put your feet on the desk and dream. What I learned from him was nobody can take away your dreams but yourself. And if you allow other people or other things to take away your dreams, that's on you. And so I learned from him that keep looking forward. Look at where you want to go. Look where you want to take the company from a business standpoint. And then the last one I think that I would bring up right now would be Dick Wilson. A mentor who took so much time to teach me so many things, very patient. The door was always open. And to have somebody in the business who takes you under their wing and says, let me help you. The other side, I had to be willing to take the teaching, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that I wouldn't be who I am today without the mentors I've had from the past.
So you've met and been around a lot of really good leaders in your time. You've mentored a lot of good leaders. Give me 3 or 4 qualities of great leaders.
They're great listeners. They're humble. They're not in the taking the credit business. And they're very thorough on company structure and how to make it work, how to be successful, because they do owe the employees that they hire the job and a well-paid job for that, and then get the employee involvement in that.
Very well said. Dennis, how do people get hold of you?
They can go on the internet on florobusinessstrategies.com, and then Dennis at florobusinessstrategies.com is the email address. And my phone number is 713-899-2769.
And for some of those older people that might want to send you a letter, no, just teasing. There you go. That's Dennis Floro. Dennis, thanks so much, buddy. That was awesome.
Yeah, and for those people, let them know I go to the mailbox still every day.
Okay, that's another week of Control Talk Now. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Until then, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, connect with somebody, slow down or speed up your speech. And as Hunter Thompson used to say, buy the ticket, take the